Now, another thing that we're going to need is the color attribute, which is the CD attribute. So again, there's many ways to generate color. In this case, we have the color node. That's the easiest way to create the CD attribute. And for now, let me turn off the velocity visualization and go back to my geometry spreadsheet. So notice how we now have the velocity attribute and the color attribute here on the left. And currently the color is set to 1, 1, 1 or white. So what I did is, first of all, based on my reference, is I created a very bright and saturated color. In this case, I was looking for something like pink or magenta. So you could select the color from the color wheel, or you could add the values here if you know the value of the color you're looking for. So I believe I used 0.5, 0, and 1 for my final animation. And what I did is I animated this value over time. So back to the viewport, what I did is I waited a few frames, more or less 40 frames. Then I created a keyframe for this value and then changed this value over the course of 10 or 20 frames. So let's do that now. The easiest way to create a keyframe on an attribute is Alt and clicking that attribute. So notice how we have now these values highlighted in green. Also notice down here to the right of the timeline, the auto key button is also turned green. And here on frame 40, we have a green keyframe being highlighted. So what I'm going to do is move the timeline, say to frame 60, and change the value of this color. Now notice how I have this auto key function on. If you don't have this on, even if you change this value, a keyframe won't be generated. So you can turn on this feature by turning on auto key changes, or you can alternative change this value and then alt click again to create the keyframe manually. So in my case, the second color was a cyan, almost blue color. It's actually almost what we have here, probably a little bit more blue. So I'll go with this for now. And notice now if we scrub the timeline, we will have the change between the first color and the second color gradually. So this is what we need to create this nice animation. Okay, so if we take a look at our nodes, we have created our density. We have also created our velocity attribute, and we have also created a color attribute. Now, currently we have only points on our geometry, and we need to convert these points to a volume. And we will do this with a volume rasterized attributes node. But before we do that, this node will expect a p-scale attribute to be created beforehand. So that can be done simple enough. We will create another point wrangler. We will connect it to the color node. And I will change the color of this new wrangler. I will also change its name to set p-scale. Now, before I continue, I will also change the color of this node. So you can press the C key to open the color swatches. And I will select a green color just so I can remember that this attribute is animated. Now, back to my point wrangler, I'm going to create the p-scale attribute just as I did with the density attribute. So I will type F for a float attribute, then type at p-scale equals, and for now I will hard code this to 0.5, type semicolon and press enter. So for sure we know that here under the geometry spreadsheet, we will have our p-scale attribute. Now this p-scale attribute, I want to link to the points from volume point separation. So what I'm going to do, instead of hard coding the value here on the Wrangler, I will create a channel that can later be referenced. So to do that, I will replace this value for the following code. Type ch for channel, open parentheses, and type the name for this channel. And this can be anything you want. In my case, I will also use p-scale. Then I will close quotes, close parentheses, and press Ctrl Enter to evaluate the code. So apparently nothing happened. And actually, if you check here the p-scale value, it changed to 0. Because currently we haven't created the interface for this channel. And to do so, we need to go here to the right and click on this button, Create Spare Parameters. So once you click on this button, the interface will be created that will set the value for this attribute here. So of course we could type here 0.05, or better yet, I will channel reference the value of the point separation here, as I mentioned before. To do so, I can right click on the point separation parameter, copy the parameter, go back to my point wrangler, and then right click on my p-scale channel and paste as a relative reference. So now if you see here, this value is linked to the points from volume node to a parameter called particle separation. So now every time we change this particle separation value, this change will be reflected under the particle scale. Okay, so I think we're ready to move on.